Kesha, welcome and welcome back. We are on our next stage of the Aquarian, and so let us go ahead and close our eyes and center. Let's take a deep breath in and feel yourself present in this moment. Releasing any cares and concerns, any busyness. And with each breath, feel yourself becoming more and more settled in this moment, in this time and space. With each breath, becoming more and more receptive to the wisdom we're about to explore. And feel your heart open, your mind at peace. When you're ready, gently open your eyes. So I think last we left it, we had met John the Harbinger as an adult, right? The wild man of the hills, caves of Engedi. And so now, Jesus has come from Galilee. The news reached Galilee, and Jesus with the multitude went down to where the Harbinger was preaching at the ford. When Jesus saw the Harbinger, he said, "Behold, the man of God! Behold, the greatest of the seers! Behold, Elijah has returned! Behold, the messenger whom God has sent to open up the way. The kingdom is at hand." When John saw Jesus standing with the throng, he said, "Behold, the King who cometh in the name of God." And Jesus said to John, "I would be washed in water as a symbol of the cleansing of the soul." And John replied, "You do not need to wash, for you are pure in thought and word and deed. And if you need to wash, I am unworthy to perform the rite." And Jesus said, "I come to be a pattern for the sons of men. And what I bid them do, that I must do. And all men must be washed, symbolic of the cleansing of the soul." This washing we establish as a rite, baptism rite we call it now, and so it shall be called. Your work, prophetic harbinger, is to prepare the way and to reveal the hidden things. The multitudes are ready for the words of life, and I have come to be made known by you to all the world as prophet of the triune God, and as the chosen one to manifest the Christ to men. Then John led Jesus down into the river at the ford, and he baptized him in the sacred name of him who sent him forth to manifest the Christ to men. And as they came out of the stream, the holy breath in the form of dove came down and sat upon Jesus' head. A voice from heaven said, "This is the well-beloved Son of God, the Christ, the love of God made manifest." John heard the voice and understood the message of the voice. Now Jesus went his way, and John preached to the multitude. As many as confessed their sins and turned from evil ways to ways of right, the harbinger baptized, symbolic of the blotting out of sins by righteousness. The harbinger had paved the way. The Logos had been introduced to men as love made manifest, and he must now begin his Christine ministry. And he went forth into the wilderness to be alone with God, that he might look into his inner heart and note its strength and worthiness. And with himself he talked. He said, "My lower self is strong. By many ties I am bound to carnal life. Have I the strength to overcome and give my life a willing sacrifice for men? Well, I shall stand before the face of men, and they demand a proof of my messiahship. What will I say?" And then the tempter came and said, "If you be the Son of God, command these stones to turn to bread." And Jesus said, "Who is it that demands a test? It is no sign that one is a son of God because he does a miracle. The devils can do mighty things. Did not the black magicians do great things before the pharaohs? My words and deeds in all the walks of life shall be proof of my messiahship." And then the tempter said, "If you will go into Jerusalem and from the temple pinnacle cast down yourself to earth, the people will believe that you are the Messiah sent from God. This you can surely do, for did not David say he gives his angels charge concerning you? And with their hands they will uphold lest you should fall." And Jesus said, "I may not tempt the Lord my God." And the tempter said, "Look forth upon the world. Behold its honors and its fame. Behold its pleasures and its wealth. If you will give your life for these, then they shall be yours." And Jesus said, "Away from me, all tempting thoughts. My heart is fixed. I spurn this carnal self with all its vain ambition and its pride. For 40 days did Jesus wrestle with his carnal self. His higher self prevailed. And when he was and then he then was hungry, but his friends had found him, and they ministered to him. Then Jesus left the wilderness, and in the consciousness of holy breath, he came into the camps of John and taught. Among the followers of John were many men from Galilee. The most devout were Andrew, Simon, James, and John, with Philip and his brother of Bethsaida. One day, as Andrew, Philip, and the son of Zebedee, either James or John, right, were talking with the harbinger, the Logos came, and John exclaimed, "Behold, the Christ!" And then the 3 disciples followed Jesus, and he asked, "What do you seek?" And the disciples asked, "Where do you live?" And Jesus answered, "Come and see." And Andrew called his brother Simon, saying, "Come with me, for I have found the Christ." When Jesus looked into Simon's face, he said, "Behold, a rock, and Peter is your name." And Philip found Nathaniel sitting by a tree and said, "My brother, come with me, for I have found the Christ. In Nazareth he abides." Nathaniel said, "Can anything good come of Nazareth?" And Philip answered, "Come and see." When Jesus saw Nathanael, when Jesus saw Nathanael come, he said, "Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom there is no guile." And Nathanael said, "How can you speak about me thus?" And Jesus said, "I saw you as you sat beneath the fig tree over there, before your brother called." Nathanael lifted up his hands and said, "This surely is the Christ, the King for whom the harbinger has often testified." And John went forth and found his brother James and brought him to the Christ. The 6 disciples went with Jesus to the place where he abode. And Peter said, "We long have sought for Christ. We came from Galilee to John. We thought that he was Christ, but he confessed to us that he was not. That he was but the harbinger sent forth to clear the way and make the pathway easy for the coming king. And when you came, he said, 'Behold the Christ.' And we would gladly follow where you go. Lord, tell us what to do." And Jesus said, "The foxes of the earth have homes, and birds have nests. I have no place to lay my head. He who would follow me must give up all cravings of the self and lose his life in saving life. I come to save the lost, and man is saved when he is rescued from himself. But men are slow to comprehend this doctrine of the Christ." And Peter said, "I cannot speak for any other man, but for myself I speak. I will leave all and follow where you lead." And then the others spoke and said, "You have the words of truth. You come from God, and if we follow in your footsteps, we cannot miss the way." Then Jesus and the 6 disciples sat a long time in silent thought. I think we'll leave it there for now. Yeah. Because quite a bit has just happened, right? Jesus and John, who as babes and young children were, as babes, were together, and now they meet up again as men beginning on their particular missions. And I love their introduction to each other. They recognize who they are. Jesus recognizes John as the messenger, and John instantly recognizes him as the Christ, the King. And I love, Jesus starts with, "Behold the man of God, behold the greatest of the seers, behold Elijah has returned." Because there was always that prophecy that, Elijah would return. It would be really cool, I think, if we greeted each other seeing our true selves and our Christed nature, not just by the name that we go by, but recognizing what is great within us. Yeah, I don't know, seems kind of cool. And Jesus, when he sees John, and John is baptizing people in the River Jordan, he says, "I too will be baptized." And John says, "But you have no need, right? Because you're the Christ and you're pure." And Jesus says, "No, I come as a pattern for the sons of men, and these things that I would ask them to do, I will have done too." And so he gets baptized. And at the end of his baptism, right, the dove comes and sits on his head, another sign that he is the anointed and appointed one. And that he's the love of God made manifest. Because we think of doves as, doves of peace and love, right? And so at that act, right? He's done all the rituals leading up to stepping out into what is his work is supposed to be, right? He's gone through all the tests at Heliopolis. Um, he sat and convened with the seven sages, and he's now been baptized. And so the only thing that's left is for him to step out on this foundation that he's already built. And so we have this wilderness experience, which we say, which we know lasts 40 days, 40 nights. That time being really is symbolic of as long as it takes, not necessarily 40 days and 40 nights, but as long as it takes to reach understanding, right? And so there are three questions that he goes through, and he's like, look, when people ask me, who am I to give these teachings? What am I going to say to them? Right? He's trying to work out how he's going to present his message. And he also, and before he even gets to that, like he recognizes that his ties to life, carnal life and in this physicality are strong, right? And he even asks, God, do I have the will? Do I have the strength to do what is going to be asked of me? And I know, and I noticed this when I was reading it now. He asked, have I the strength to overcome and do what is mine to do? And what will they say when they ask, who am I to do this? And I wrote, I know, honey, because I've been there. How will I present myself to the world, embodying all that I know, and be listened to? Like, who am I? The question, who am I? Because everybody asks, if you start to get too big for your britches, as they say, right? When you begin to step out of race consciousness and into your own authenticity and power, the first question that people ask, because they are not so sure of themselves, is, who do you think you are? And in my case, it needs to be enough when I say I'm Kesha-Lindsay, right? But there's quite a bit of growth and learning and acceptance that has to come along with being able to step into that power and say that so comfortably. And so he's wrestling with it. And in that moment, a tempter comes, and they don't call it the devil, it's just the tempter. And, demands a test. Well, you can turn that stone into bread. Or, yeah, and it's like, well, anybody can perform miracles. Anybody can, which I love, because it reminds you that anybody can do this. Anybody can perform these miracles. Anybody can take the matter that is on hand and transform it into something greater and more worthwhile. And he's like, even the lowest, the devils, can do these mighty things. And so his answer is, no, my words and deeds in all the walks of life shall be proof of my messiahship. And, it's like, yeah, I will let how I act and how I am be that proof. And again, I go back to, well, people say, well, who do you think you are? Well, I'm Kesha-Lindsay, right? And if you recognize how I interact with people and how I move through the world, that is the answer, right? There's a level of integrity and honesty and authenticity and all those things there. And so he's like, yeah, my words and my deeds will be proof of my messiahship. And then the tempter goes on, well, you can jump off the top of the temple, you've already been told by David, this is in the Psalms, 91, where, the angels will pick you up lest you dash your foot against a stone. And he's like, yeah, I'm not going to test God. Like, what place does that have, right? And that's true. We don't need to test God if we believe that God loves us and is for us. Then there's no need to put ourselves in dangerous situations to prove His love for us. That's an ego trip and maybe something you do for somebody else. But if you truly believe, then you wouldn't need to do that, not for yourself or for someone else, because that someone else needs to prove it within themselves. Nobody can prove for another the existence of God. You have to come to that on your own. And so then the tempter comes back with, well, you haven't succumbed to any of my other temptations, so why don't we try fame and honor, riches and honor, blah, blah, blah. And Jesus is like, get thee behind me, Satan, right? And with that last test, or that last suggestion made by the tempter, Jesus says, I spurn the carnal self with all its vain ambition and its pride. And I think in standing up and saying that, he's like, that's when he cuts the cord to carnal self. And the earlier question of, oh, the ties are so strong, I'm not sure if I have the will. By the time he's mustered up the strength to be able to, to push back the tempter this third time, he has strengthened within himself that resolve that, I'm not giving in to carnal self. And then, they say he wrestled with it some more, but I think at that point since he's spoken it, he's mentally accepted it. That 40 days, that time, the time it just takes to get there is the time it takes to go from the head to the heart and to know it within every pore of your being. And, inner work is hard, so yeah, we get a little hungry, and then he's ministered to by his friends. I think in the Bible they're ravens or, some nature, but here I think it's, and then he was hungry, but his friends found him. Yeah. And then suddenly it's all these fresh people, right? It's John and these other 6 men who become like the first of the disciples. We've got Andrew, Simon, James, John, Philip, and his brother Bethsaida, that's Nathaniel. So we've got those 6, and he recognizes them instantly. He sees in Peter, or he recognizes their inner identity, the truth of themselves. And with Simon, it's Simon Peter, and he sees him as the rock. And we'll eventually know that Peter becomes the rock on which the church is founded. But behold, a rock, and Peter is your name. And then Nathaniel, he's like, can anything good come out of Nazareth? Nazareth is such a poor and rundown place, but he's like, is anything good come out of there? And in fact, it's like not just any good, but the very best, right? And Jesus sees Nathaniel and says, behold, the one in whom there is no guile. So someone who is so honest and pure at heart. And Nathaniel's like, how could you possibly know that about me? You just met. And he's like, no, I watched you under a tree. And that's the thing, right? Who we are when no one's looking is who we truly are, right? And so Jesus recognizes that in Nathaniel. And I think, at that point, they all recognize that he is the Christ, and they're all ready to follow him. And Jesus just says, I don't have a home. So if you're going to be with me, you'll need to be prepared to live without the comforts, basically, is what he's saying here. And so now, we've got the start of our journey. It's like, the Fellowship of the Ring. Everybody's kind of coming together, and we're starting out on this grand journey. And I think we'll leave it there for now. We'll come back next week and take up the next portion, but that's quite a bit to think about. Questions, comments, I look forward to them in the comment section. And I'll see you back here next week. Love you in the meantime. Bye.